Ever since a Game of Thrones spin-off was announced back in 2019, fans have been awaiting it impatiently. The spin-off gives us a chance to dive back into George R.R. Martin's world, and after the underwhelming finale of the original series, fans are eager for a new series to set things right. Now, the spin-off is mere weeks away, and we've received a new photo. Let's discuss, starting with a broad overview of the spin-off. The spin-off series is a prequel to the Game of Thrones. It's called House of the Dragon, and is still based on the book series by George R.R. Martin. The book deals with the history of the Targaryens, who we got to know in the Game of Thrones series. The prequel will be set way before the War of the Five Rings, and while readers might have a brief idea of what might happen, no one can say what part of the extensive lore the showrunners will focus on, or where in the timeline the story will lie. However, a new poster release is giving us a vague idea of what events the prequel will deal with. Now, let's talk about the new photo. The new image shows Millie Alcock as young Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. She stands in front of melted swords, like the ones in the original Iron Throne, and a dragon head is directly behind her. To understand the implications of this poster, we need to dive a bit deeper into the lore. But first, who is Rhaenyra Targaryen? Rhaenyra Targaryen is the firstborn child of King Viserys Targaryen. Her birth order puts her in an extremely favorable position in Westeros politics at the time. With pure Valyrian blood and the ability to ride dragons, she's every bit a badass queen. There's just one problem: she's a woman, and so her position in the line of succession is deferred to Prince Daemon Targaryen, King Viserys' brother and Rhaenyra's uncle. And how does the poster tie into this? Rhaenyra's birth order and Daemon's status as King Viserys' immediate heir makes the poster so interesting. Rhaenyra stands in front of what seems to be a melted throne, and the dragon at her back makes her feel quite queen-like. This could allude to a throne taken by force from an apparent heir, or the struggle for the throne, if not the conclusion. And so, we might just have our timeline. Also, what about Viserys? There's the golden question. For a struggle for the throne to begin and Rhaenyra's destiny to unfold, King Viserys has to die first. Viserys is going to be played by top-billed actor Paddy Considine, but if there's one thing Game of Thrones fans know, it's that no amount of fame or name can save an actor or guarantee their character's longevity in the shows. So we might just end up with a Ned Stark situation and see the nice enough father figure die pretty early. And we're not saying we hope it happens, since Viserys is a good man and a pretty decent king. But if we're to pick between him and Rhaenyra, the poster queens got our attention. Now, there's a whole list of contenders. The list of people vying for the throne doesn't end at Rhaenyra and Daemon, unfortunately. Early character descriptions name quite a few possible contenders. Besides the king's firstborn, Rhaenyra and his brother Daemon, Viserys' firstborn son, Aegon Targaryen, and his secondborn son and Rhaenyra's half-brother, Aemond Targaryen, are also expected to join the fray. The House of the Dragon is about to be out for one another's blood. Moving on to the source material. Now that we've analyzed the poster, let's talk about the source material, which is Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. While the series will likely delve deeper into the characters' minds and plots, we do have some basic facts and figures from the books that might end up pointing in the right direction. According to the book, the mention of Viserys' children and their birth orders point us towards the most important event of Targaryen history, the Dance of the Dragon, which was the civil war that began after King Viserys died. In the book, the main contenders are Princess Rhaenyra, who is Viserys' eldest daughter with his first wife, who had passed away. The second claimant is Prince Aegon, who is Viserys' surviving eldest son with his second wife, Alicent Hightower. Things get messy when Viserys' younger brother plays the role of the devil and announces his own claim to the throne. As one would expect from a Game of Thrones book and Mr. Martin, there's plenty of blood and death, and how could we forget incest? As we've mentioned before, the most important part of this era is the Targaryens' civil war, the Dance of the Dragons, which would have been a much cooler name for the prequel, by the way. And how might this pan out on screen? If the prequel follows the format of the OG Game of Thrones series, which would be smart since it did such good business, then we might see a first season establishing our main characters. We can even expect Viserys to be done within the first season, and later seasons will likely focus on the power struggle, building up to the war near the finale. If this is the route the showrunners take, then fans can rest easy and expect the show to have a decent run, spanning 4 or 5 seasons at least. Plus, let's take a look at the cast. The cast announced so far features Paddy Considine playing King Viserys, Matt Smith taking on the role of Daemon Targaryen, Olivia Cooke as Alicent Hightower, with Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra Targaryen. They will also be joined by Millie Alcock, who will play a young Princess Rhaenyra, Emily Carey playing young Alicent. Harry Collett will also join in as Rhaenyra's eldest son Jacaerys, with Tom Glencarney as Aegon Targaryen, Ewan Mitchell as Aemond Targaryen, and Fia Saban as Helena Targaryen. The cast so far is chock full of Targaryens and Alicent, who also married into the family, so she's technically family. But we can expect more Hightowers, Valerians, and Lannisters to join in, because what's a Game of Thrones without an extensive list of players? Finally, House of the Dragon is George R.R. Martin approved. Now, this is our favorite part of the story. Fans of A Song of Ice and Fire will know that George is a very involved writer. He has his own blog where he updates fans about the happenings of his books and their on-screen adaptations, and he was the first source of news when the show wrapped filming. A couple of months ago, when House of the Dragon wrapped up, George announced that all 10 episodes of the show had been shot. This news came straight from London via his journaling blog, and he also wrote that he was loving the rough cuts he'd been shown from the series. He did acknowledge that there was some production work to be done in terms of special effects, color timing, and score, but he was pretty satisfied with the writing, direction, and acting. That's high praise coming from the guy whose brain churned out the entire world that the story is set in. Martin had also talked about the series in comparison to another fantasy series coming out around the same time. Speaking of the Lord of the Rings series coming to Amazon, George had shared that as soon as the series comes out, publications will start talking about the best fantasy series and how he thought that comparison was necessary. However, he did admit that once people start talking about it, his competitive streak starts showing, and while he wants both shows to do great, he still wants dragons to beat rings. I hope both shows succeed. I'm competitive enough. I hope we succeed more. If they win 6 Emmys, and I hope they do, I hope we win 7. But nonetheless, it's good for fantasy. I love fantasy. I love science fiction. I want more shows on television, he said on the matter. And we do expect the show to win a bunch of Emmys, considering the amount of dough the producers have thrown at it, with a reported $20 million being spent per episode on the 10-episode long first season of the show. In comparison to House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones had a much smaller price tag, with $100 million being spent per season. This puts the show's early seasons to have a roughly $6 million per episode tag, and the 8th and final season going up to $15 million per episode. House of the Dragon, on the other hand, is starting on a whopping $20 million, which means the team behind it will obviously have higher expectations for the prequel. And you know what? We get it. It's only human to want your child to be the best there is, even if it is a brainchild in the form of a fantasy series full of blood, wars, and dragons. That's a wrap for this video. Who do you think will be the strongest contender for King Viserys' throne? Do you think Princess Rhaenyra will come out strongest? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.